Hi, this is Alex Helmbrecht, the Sports Information Director at Chadron State College, and I'm sitting here this morning with Chadron State women's basketball coach Tim Connealy. It's hard to believe, but this is the final week of Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference basketball. The Eagles enter their final game. They'll play at rival Black Hills State Saturday. That's a 5:30 tip-off there in Spearfish. There'll also be an alumni gathering, I believe, early in the afternoon up there. So if you're in the area and have a chance to go to that game, it'd be a fun time to connect with some Chadron State alums. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. The Eagles are currently 5-20 overall, 5-16 in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference after losing two tough games last weekend at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and CSU Pueblo. Coach, I know your final long road trip of the season didn't go the way that you'd wanted it to, suffering those two losses to the Colorado schools, but talk a little bit about what your young team still kind of learned, and I know you got some really solid performances. Katie Ranta led the team in scoring both games, and even though Dallas Shaw's shot wasn't falling, she still helped out getting her career-high 12 rebounds.
Yeah, Alex, going on the road with this team, it's kind of been an adventure this year a little bit, and this weekend was no different. We played two solid teams. Colorado Springs on Friday night. They're ranked second in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, very talented team. They have a lot of real potent offensive players on their squad. And, we came into that game with a game plan of trying to pack it in a little bit and seeing if they could beat us from the outside. And unfortunately, they did. They had their little freshman point guard, who's a true freshman, Gabby Ramirez, went 6 of 7 from the three-point line. And, that really kind of tweaked what we were trying to do defensively and hurt us, And by the time we adjusted, she was already hot, and she hit a couple more threes, and it just seemed like, she was kind of the ringleader for them, and we really weren't able to get into that game. The next night against Pueblo, again, a top 4 team in our conference, our kids actually competed extremely well in the first half. We really moved the ball well on the offensive end. It was one of those games where just outside shots weren't falling, and defensively, our kids kept playing. We competed hard, and probably one of the better defensive games we played this year. I think we held Pueblo to 61 or 62 points, which is well below their average, and generally that's where we need to hold teams to be in games. But, when your outside shots aren't falling, teams tend to pack it in a little bit as the game progresses, and Pueblo did that. And it was kind of like a double-edged sword a little bit in the sense that our outside shots weren't falling and they were packing it in, so we couldn't, get those inside looks or get to the free throw line. That being said, I mentioned it a little bit ago, defensively I thought our kids played well and kept us in that game.
Well, it should be a fun environment this weekend. Usually, traditionally, the last few years at least, the Eagles have played the University of Nebraska-Kearney in the finale. Last year, the Lopers came up here, but since they're now in the MIAA, Black Hills State is in the RMAC, and so those schedules just kind of flipped, and had a great game here at home against Black Hills State early in January. The Yellow Jackets, though, prevailed, winning 72-65, but a very competitive, hard-fought game. Should hold true this weekend, especially since the Yellow Jackets are fighting for that 8th and final playoff spot in the RMAC.
Yeah, Black Hills is arguably one of the hottest teams in the conference right now. They play, they're our travel partner, so they play the same teams we do each weekend. And they went on the road and they beat Springs and Pueblo this last weekend. And as you mentioned, Alex, they are competing right now with Regis for that final playoff spot. And this is a big game for them, and I think it's gonna make for a really cool atmosphere up in Spearfish. I think, their team, it's the first year they've been in the RMAC. They have a chance to get into the RMAC playoffs that first year, and we'd love nothing more than to keep them out. So we're going to prepare like this is our championship game because it is our last game, and hopefully we go up there, and as you mentioned, it was a good game earlier this year. I suspect that it should be another good basketball game.
Black Hills State is currently 11-14 overall, 10-11 in the conference. So, of course, usually, as coaches mentioned in the past, the last couple of years, if you get to that 9, 10, 11 win mark, usually you're guaranteed to be in the top 8 of the conference. But with so many good teams in the conference this year, as coaches mentioned, UCCS, Pueblo, Metro State, Colorado Mesa. It has been a really tough conference ride. Yeah,
it has been. The way the conference is shooken out this year, there's a lot of teams that are kind of lumped into the middle, and then there's some teams kind of in that bottom tier, which we're at the top of, and Black Hills has, like I said, competed really well the last 2 or 3 weeks and played themselves into a position for the playoffs. So, congratulations to them for putting themselves in this situation. That being said, we're we're going to approach this game like we do every game, and it'll be tweaked a little bit because we only have one game this week, so we're able to focus on one team and kind of really hone in on a scouting report. So hopefully, our kids really lock in this week. We'll have a good game plan put together, and we can go up and really execute Saturday.
Pretty similar teams offensively. Black Hills State is led by Chelsea Biegler, who's one of the top scorers in the conference. She's just over 17 points per game. She's the only Yellow Jacket player in double figures, though. Bailey Cusser and Callie Bechtold are both at 9 points per game, which is kind of similar to how CSC is. Katie Ranta averages just about 16 points a game. Dallas Shaw's behind her at 10. And then Hattie Guzman, Kate Simonton, Hattie Guzman, Sadie Wall are all over 6. Coach, heading into this last game, obviously, I know you want to get that win, keep Black Hills State out of the playoffs, and kind of continue to grow this rivalry since we're so close. But really, with such a young team, you're only losing Sadie Wash. She's the only senior on the team, in a pretty experienced group of girls coming back next year who finally are getting some starts under their belt. How big of an off season is this for your team?
I think it's going to be huge. I think you've seen these last few weeks how much our kids have grown up this year and how much better they are playing, and people are starting to understand their roles and how to play together. And, you mentioned our one senior, Sadie Waugh, who's had a great career, kind of a tough ending with some of her injuries, but she is our only senior. She's the only player we're losing. We're going to bring everyone else back. So, obviously with the development we've had this year, we're going to be looking to add not quite a few pieces, maybe 3 to 5 pieces for next year. And, with this solid core coming back, hopefully, we'll be a little bit more competitive next year, but not just competitive. I think, once we understand our roles and have another offseason to develop and another preseason, I think we can be a pretty scary team next year.
Well, excuse me. As you mentioned, that development has been, it's been on the court. A lot of the local fans saw it. The final homestand as CSC earned 2 wins. But as you know, this is the last radio show we'll be able to do this year. Unfortunately, CSC didn't qualify for the RMAC postseason. But, Coach, before I let you get out of here, what can we expect from the Eagles in 2013 and 14? I know you're not looking ahead right now. You're still focused on Black Hills State. But what can we expect?
Right now with the kids we have coming back, we're set pretty good at the guard position. We did add a mid-semester transfer in Kaylee Regath, who is a transfer from Hastings College, originally from Kimball, and she's your prototypical power forward. She's going to play the 4 position for us. She can play post defense, rebound really well as shoot from the outside, so she can stretch it a little bit. This year Katie Ranta had to fill that 4 spot, and she was a little bit out of position. She did really well with it, but with Kaylee coming in next year, we'll have Greer Babb in at the 5. We can move Ranta out to the 3, which I think matchup-wise will help her a little bit, especially on the defensive end. And then right now with the guards we have coming back, we're pretty loaded at those spots. What we're looking at bringing in for next year is possibly an experienced point guard, a freshman point guard to help, Hattie Guzman at that position, possibly a shooting guard at the wing, and then a couple solid inside players just so we can get some depth inside. But, for next year, I think recruiting-wise, if we can find an impact player possibly at the point guard position and then just kind of fill in some role players, some kids that can eat up some minutes behind some of these kids we have coming back and possibly push them for some playing time. Heading into next year, obviously without having, being able to talk about recruits or still being in the recruiting process, we don't know exactly how we're going to look, but obviously I think we'll be much improved.
All right, Coach. Well, best of luck to you this weekend and certainly in the recruiting season and in the months to come as the off-season preparations continue. So thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks a lot, Alex.